And we're on. Adriana, thanks for being on Fitness and Consciousness.
Thanks for having me. I have a couple questions to ask you.
Okay, sounds good.
How did you get involved in the weightlifting community?
I started training like as a little kid. So I would like box and wrestle with my dad and lift his dumbbells. And from the time I was really young, 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that. And then I became a trainer shortly after high school. I was 19, and um, I was certified through ACE. It's just a certification that's pretty popular, and I did that for a couple years, and I kind of got sick of the business part of it. Like I thought that to be successful, I was working at like the most successful personal training studio in Indianapolis, and it just seemed kind of like a factory. So people would just kind of like come in, go to like from one machine to the next. The owner was a real control freak, and he had uh, it was like a place where like all the clients worked with all of the trainers, and so he wanted everything done just the way he wanted everything done, and there wasn't much room for creativity. And I would be creative anyways, and that caused problems. And so uh, it seemed like they were kind of like looking for a reason to get rid of me, but it wasn't because of my like lack of skill or knowledge or anything. And so they put me on a suspension, like because for not shaving close enough, of all things.
Your,
And I didn't get a raise partly because of my weight. Like they said that I was too thin, and I weighed about 15 pounds more than I do now. So I weighed like yeah, 10 pounds or so more than I do now. So I weighed like 176 when I started. And then when I had my review, I was down to like 155, and I was, shredded and just as strong. And, but I was working a lot of crazy hours, and I was just losing weight, but I was still, practicing martial arts all the time and lifting. So it seemed like they were just looking for a reason to get rid of me. But he put me on a suspension, and he said that the business community in Indianapolis is really small, and they could keep me from getting another job. So it was like he wanted just this control over me. So I got another job almost immediately, selling lawn care. And I just decided to train people like out of my house, my garage, my backyard, and people would come over and train in martial arts and lifting. And I liked that a lot better. So I wasn't worried about making money from it. I just wanted to do it. It's just always been my thing. And then when I got a book from the library called The Russian Kettlebell Challenge, which was what um, Strong First, the certification I have now, that's what it was before then. I saw that book like 7 years ago, 8 years ago maybe. And I thought, well, if I get back into training, it's only going to be with this guy's certification. I was still training people out of my house. And then about 3.5 years ago, I did that. And then so I just started where I was an employee before. So in like from 1999 to 2001, I was an employee as a trainer. And now I'm an independent. So I don't really have to do what anybody says. I do things my own way, or I just won't do it. So then I got started with a gym called Sobe Fit in Broad Ripple. And then, as you know, White Pine. So I got to know Matt, and I started out there just teaching a few workshops. and those went well. And then we started talking about me doing regular classes there. And so that was about a year and a half ago. So it was not too much before you started there.
So when you knew that you were going to start classes there, did you know you were going to be teaching kids? Like, did you want to teach kids?
I've always wanted to teach kids. I always liked working with kids, whether it was in martial arts or strength. But at first there, it was just an adult class. And then we started talking about doing a kids class. And there were some other kids that showed up. It was just the class. I didn't call it an adult class. So there was some younger people that came. Like there was a like 11-year-old boy that was coming sometimes, and kind of just like sporadic, but it was mostly adults. And then we started the kids class. I think it was the beginning of 2017. I think.
Cool. Also, why did you choose kettlebells as your way of teaching or weightlifting and all of that?
Kettlebells to me are the most versatile training tool. So if you can have one kettlebell and you can get a good workout with it. You can do all kinds of movements, from the juggling to like squats and presses, and you can make it difficult. And so if you just pick like a medium-sized weight, then you can do a lot of different things with it. And when you're teaching in a class setting, to have, you know, all kinds of different weights that people would use, it's just a lot easier with kettlebells because of everything that you can do with them. And it doesn't have to be a real precise weight like barbells, like to have enough barbells for everyone. Because like, you know, from being in class, like sometimes it's crowded and sometimes it's not. And so the kettlebells cover everything. So I don't really have to worry about how many people show up. There's the kettlebells there, and we can make it work. Where if it was just barbells, then would we have enough 10-pound plates or enough 25-pound plates or enough bars or enough room or whatever? So just more versatile. And I think that I know that they develop a kind of their main purpose is power endurance. And so, and ballistics. So the ballistics are where, you know, like if we're doing the swings, the weight just falls, or doing snatches, the weight falls, and then we re-swing, or so those forces that generate. So you can imagine like when you're swinging like your 53 pounder, you could set that 53 pounds on your foot nice and gently, and it's fine. It's not going to hurt at all. But imagine dropping it from, you know, like the top of your swing, so it's at chest high, and then imagine that your foot would be destroyed if it landed on your foot from there. So that force that gets generated, it works on the reflexes, and that develops your tendon strength and like reflexes, tendon strength, and power endurance. And also it's a different kind of mental endurance when we set up for like you've done some 10-minute snatch test and 5 minutes, and it's a different kind of thing that you just really can't duplicate with any other tool.
Cool. When did you get started in martial arts and BJJ and all that?
Well, as I mentioned before, I started out like boxing and wrestling with my dad, and we would just fighting. It wasn't nothing organized. It wasn't like that. It was just we were playing. We had father and son boxing gloves, and we had We would fight with sticks. We'd get like plastic He-Man swords, and we'd break them on each other. And then we would reinforce them with wood. So we would tape wood to our He-Man swords, and we'd break those on each other too. And then in high school, I started training with I had a bunch of friends that did different martial arts. I had some friends that were certified in, or always practicing like Jeet Kune Do, Kung Fu, like kickboxing, and uh, and also certified to teach. Also, like Blake, who I've mentioned,
Yeah.
training with. And we started doing we would go and we would just train. We'd just teach each other whatever. And then my dad told me that I should learn jujitsu because Hoist Gracie was beating everybody in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. And so he didn't say Brazilian jiu-jitsu or anything. He just said jiu-jitsu. And so I found my jiu-jitsu school on the east side of Indianapolis. And I started there, like judo, jiu-jitsu, and sometimes kendo, like sword technique, a little bit of aikido, sword technique, and a little bit of kyudo, which is Zen archery. But the jiu-jitsu is what I really liked a lot, and the judo too, but judo just had too many rules. I thought that it was too restrictive, but it was for a purpose. So I started there in 1997, and it was just before my daughter was born. And I stayed there for, I guess, on and off really until just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I trained also so that was more like traditional Japanese style. We did Zen meditation at the end of class. There was all the Japanese etiquette, the bowing, there's a lot of rules that's etiquette that even if you were like going there and you're trying to be nice and respectful, you're still going to break all kinds of etiquette because you just don't know. Nobody told you not to step over somebody's sword. But that's, it's like, what's the big deal? You're walking, somebody's sword's in the way, you stepped over it. But it's a huge deal. It's really disrespectful. But you wouldn't know that without being told. So there's all these little things that you pick up on. I think there's a lot of value to it, to be learning how to be mindful, and then the techniques. And then I had some friends that trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which mainly, I think the good thing about it is they tend to be more technical on the ground, but they usually don't have very good throws or takedowns, and they're not usually very good at punching and kicking. It can kind of depend. So if you go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, is it a sport school or is it a self-defense school? So you might go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school and never have any punches thrown at you. I mean, it's still effective, but you just have to like understand what it is that you're taking. So I've had friends that were into that and learned from them. And I've taken the classes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and like 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which is like without a gi. And I just went to one of those so far, but what I did a lot of was teaching. So I started teaching jiu-jitsu about 30 minutes after my first class. So I was training with my buddies in the kickboxing and wrestling and stuff. And then I left my first jiu-jitsu class. I went straight to my buddy's house. And I was like, check this out. And so I was showing them like triangle chokes and all these throws and different things. I don't remember what all we worked on, but it really blew my mind. And so we started working on all of that stuff. And there were a lot of times when like I was working during class hours. So I was having trouble getting to class, or maybe like sometimes when I was younger, maybe I was having a hard time affording being able to go. 2 kids and working a lot, and so time, money, and so I would just teach people. So I had friends that were already good at martial arts, and some people started their martial arts journey with me. And from going to these different classes and seeing what I like and what I can critique about it, for instance, like the judo having a bunch of rules, it doesn't make it bad. Basketball has a lot of rules too. You can't, or soccer, you can't just like grab onto the soccer ball with your hands and run into the goal. So sports have rules to make it the sport, but I didn't like all that. And when I would teach people, it was like, this is what's practical. This is what I think is the best way to train. It's fast, and you should be able to apply it relatively quickly. So sometimes we're doing fancy stuff that's probably going to be difficult to pull off in a real street fight, but most of the time this is the solid application against any style. No matter like what somebody's bringing towards you, you should be able to handle it. So it was through like teaching it, and I've probably taught at least as many classes as I've been to. I've probably taught more classes than I've taken. So then I kind of became my own favorite teacher. And I think that that's important too. I don't think I'm the best. I don't present myself as the best. But I've become my own favorite teacher. I do things the way that I think are the best. Or if I go to somebody else, it's like, oh, I think that, this is my critique of this or that. So that's kind of how I started and got to where I am today.
Do you have any funny stories about when you taught people at your house?
Funny stories of teaching. Yeah, I think so. There's martial arts humor can be kind of dark sometimes, because it's kind of funny if a boy gets kicked in the groin or something like that, and it's the reaction is funny, or you have these all kinds of funny stuff happens. I mean, it's really this game of death. Like martial arts, it's the art of war. Like, so it's about killing people. And so when you're going against someone, or you're working with your training partners, it's almost this funny thing, because you get somebody in a choke, they tap twice, that means they're dead. You could have killed them. Or if you put them in arm bar and they tap, that means, yeah, you could have just destroyed my arm. And if you destroy my arm, then it's going to be easier to kill them. You just busted one of their main weapons. And so it's kind of funny, like when it doesn't happen. I used to do a lot more hard sparring than what I do now, or what I even recommend. Maybe it's okay when you're younger, but like there was a time I had we were working on like defense against the knife, and there was guy that he was like I was like switching hands with the knife and doing different stuff, and so like I raised my hand, like I had the knife in that hand, and then he like blocked that, but it was really just a trick. And so I would have, like I stabbed the rubber knife into him, and maybe that's not like the most humorous story, but like being there at the time and everybody's watching, because he thinks like, oh, I just blocked this knife, and no, actually it just got shoved into your spleen. And probably like one of the funniest times, funny to me and everybody but who it happened to, was my buddy Sam, who we used to do a lot of really hard sparring, but we were just like practicing this throw. And it's like where you like kick somebody's, or catch somebody's kick, and then the other foot, your foot goes like between their legs and does like an inside sweep and throws them to the ground.
Yeah.
And so when I went to do the sweep, so I caught his kick. I went to do the sweep. Well, I kneed him really hard in the groin. And then when I did the sweep, we were both in the air for a second, and my knee landed on his groin again. And it was hilarious, but it was also pretty serious. He spent like the next hour and a half, is probably not an exaggeration, in my bathroom puking, and it was hilarious. Not to him at the time, but it was hilarious to everyone else that he was. I was like kind of worried about him because it can be pretty serious, but that was hilarious. And I won't say why, but my buddy Ron would like that story. So there you go, Ron.
What do you like most about teaching weightlifting?
My main thing is I want to show people their strength. So that's kind of like literally, like when you're pressing, like you did like the push press with 45 pounds, like half your body weight, and you're doing the one arm overhead squat. It's like literally your strength, but also like the mental strength, and just being able to focus and apply yourself to a goal and make that happen, and to do things that you didn't think you could do before. So a lot of times when people work with me, I think a lot of good trainers, they can see your future better than you can. They can look at you and they can see in that first session, okay, here's the numbers that we're going to start with. You're going to start with lifting this 45-pound weight, and then we move up and up, add a rep here, a pound there. And then when it comes time for like a maximum amount, so this person has never done this before, but the trainer can just kind of get a feel for it. I think you can do this now. And it usually happens. And so like there's times with you, like, yeah, the 45 pounder, I think you can get it now. It takes a couple tries. And then, let's see 53. Okay, it didn't work. Well, instead of just trying, forget about it. We'll put that away. We'll come back to it later. But just showing someone their strength and that they can do more than what they think. Seeing people's face, like their expression when they just did something that they didn't think they could is the coolest thing.
Yeah. Why did you start doing podcasts?
Well, it started with, I was going to start a blog. So I've been told that I can write pretty well. And so my friend, Eleanor, actually, it was Eleanor who said, have 10 blogs ready to go before you publish them. And she's like, don't send me 3 of them. Don't send me 5 of them. Send me 10, and then we'll get you started. And I thought, well, I could write 4, I think, pretty well. And and then after that, I would just kind of be treading water. I mean, or repeating like what has already been said. And I was watching a lot of the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was encouraging people to start their own. And so I thought, well, that would be cool to start my own podcast and just kind of like see what would happen. So I started it in February of this year. And my thought was, okay, if I can get a guest, then I'll do that. But if I can't get a guest, I'll just do them by myself. And I wanted to help people connect to what they want. So maybe I have some information I can help people like with their training or some kind of other concept. But then when I got into like talking to people and connecting people and the feedback from it, like people liked the organic nature of it. So most of the time people don't ask for their questions ahead of time. I have had a few that have, but starting in February, so however many weeks that is, uh, I did my 66th show last weekend. That was by myself. So I've done 3 by myself. So I had 63 shows since February. So where I thought at the beginning I might have a hard time getting a guest. And now I look back at my guest list and it's like some of my favorite people that I've been studying for years. And it's interesting to like push your thinking. Like there's a psychology professor and he goes around speaking. His name's Jordan Peterson. And he was saying like people think by talking. So if you're, when we have these guests, so I'm able to talk to some of my strength heroes and like martial artists that are excellent and work with UFC fighters and a UFC fighter and all these different elite trainers or people that are into, they're doctors of different kinds that have been on, or like Almost did a really cool episode. And so some of these people, like Almost, they don't really have anything to promote. So most of the time when people come on, they have a new book coming out. They have classes that they're trying to sell, or but it pushes the thinking. So if somebody comes on and like Matt Shaw is a good example. And so, for instance, I'm a vegan and Matt not is definitely not. And so like when we're at White Pine, at first, somebody might think, well, why would a vegan want to work at White Pine? There's skulls and skins and they're killing deer and there's all this stuff around. But I can talk to Matt and he has like a little bit different political views than me also. But I can talk to him about politics or whatever. And it's not like I'm trying to convince him to be a vegan. I'm not trying to convince him to think like me politically. He will tell me what he thinks, and then I'll be able to tell him what I think. And then maybe I can adjust my thinking. I'm not so set in some particular opinion that I can't listen to what he says, because can I say that I can say that like as a vegan I understand animals in this way, but do you think I understand more about animals than Matt? Not really. But also it depends what you're talking about, because maybe there's some stuff about animals that he doesn't understand. Yeah. So does that mean everything that he says that's different than me is right and I'm wrong?
No.
But so I can like listen to him, and the way that I can talk with him, it's not like you're different than me, you need to be more like me. It's, oh, that's interesting. Here's what I think about that. And so when people come on the show, it pushes my thinking also. And so if I can help people connect with ideas that resonate with them and maybe throw a little wrench in the gears, like, okay, this is the way I thought up until 10 seconds ago, but that actually made sense. Now I can at least think about that, because like part of our thinking is not just like, oh, this thought pops up in my head and so there it is, or I just hear about this idea and there it is. Our thinking is like, how much thought did you put into your thinking? How much self-critique did you put into that? So if I think, okay, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best martial art, period. And then there's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy that gets knocked out by a boxer. Okay, I guess boxing is the best martial art. Well, and then the boxing guy gets submitted by another Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. So it's not so simple, and I don't think that it's very healthy to have these views of ourselves that are concrete. And there's she's a Buddhist nun. Her name is Pema Chodron, and she kind of defines the ego as having a concrete view of ourself. So if someone tells you something about, like if someone says, "Oh, you didn't tell me the truth about this," you can say, you might fight it and say, "No, I'm honest. I'm an honest person. I did tell the truth." Well, did you tell the whole truth? Did you leave something out? So that it gets kind of, okay, well, maybe I wasn't so honest in that. Maybe I could have been more honest. But if you just have this concrete view of yourself, you're gonna fight that instead of listen. So doing the podcast, and the reasons, I guess, over time have changed, but it shows me different ways of thinking. And I think doing it in a way that gives people the chance to express themselves. Like if you start doing like listening to tutorials on how to do a podcast, many of them will say they need to be 20 and 40 minutes, between 20 to 40 minutes. There's some that are like 15 minutes. I was on somebody else's that was just a 15-minute thing. But the most popular podcast that there is, Joe Rogan's, goes on for, often it's 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 2 hours. A short one for him is about an hour and a half, because he's digging into what this person really thinks, and he's challenging his own thinking, and he's breaking the somewhat conventional wisdom of the podcast should be between this time and this time. And if we were doing, say, like I've been on a radio show also, but there's like the typical way to me that's kind of going to be dying out, or is dying out, is these talk shows that, like the late night talk show, where the comedian or the actor or whatever, they go on, David Letterman, or he's retired, or Conan O'Brien, or whoever, and they have like 6 minutes. The joke is already planned out. The host is going to give them the setup for the joke, and they have 6 minutes, and it's all just stuff that they have planned out already. Or there's like these political shows where people will go on there, and there's so many. Did you fall asleep?
No, I'm still here.
There's like maybe a bunch of people on there, so they have like all these like 30-second talking points, and so it's just like they just have these like little talking points that are ready. But when you have someone on for this show, maybe it'll last an hour, 45 minutes. I don't have a set time. It just ends on its own. So the podcast just allows the natural conversation to happen and gives everyone time to express their views.
Okay. On your podcast so far, you said like you've interviewed like 63 people. Out of those 63 people, who has been your favorite person to interview so far?
I really don't have a favorite. I've thought about it, and
Get my cat.
I really can't say that I've had a favorite. One thing that I do like, though, is when someone, and the best person that's done this so far is Alberto Galazzi. He's a TAC Fit instructor, and he also does some stuff with some Strong First instructors. But he's in Italy, and he travels around the world teaching. But he was on the show, and it was a really, really good one. He's really smart, really good trainer. I'm probably going to ask him to be on again pretty soon because I think he has a book coming out soon. But he shared it, and then when I'm looking at who was sharing it, it was all these different tack fit instructors. So I could see more and more how um, how many people are connected through other people. Like I had someone on, and she's like the only known case. Her name's Amanda Bossy. She's the only known case of having severe Tourette's, getting off all of her medications all at once, doing it herself, and then getting to where she has no visible signs of it. You can talk to her for a long time and not see any problems. And so she was saying that, she had some people contacting her after the show. And so I guess my favorite thing is just when people get connected to what they're wanting to connect with. And it's strange. Like some shows that I think are going to be very popular and spread really well don't. And I don't know why that is. And then other ones kind of surprise me and they get tons of views and tons of shares. But I can't really say that I have a favorite guest. I like them all in different ways. So I'm not pressed to have anyone on the show. I'm the boss here, so I don't have anyone that I don't really want on the show that I'm not excited to talk to and excited to learn more about.
That's cool.
Is your mom right beside you? I see you keep like looking over and talking to someone.
There's a cat over there. I want my cat.
Oh.
Here, he's coming. Oh. Yes.
Hi, cat.
Say hi to Ryan. Okay.
Just for some of the people who are like just listening, we're on YouTube also, so the Fitness and Consciousness YouTube channel, because most people are just listening on iTunes and stuff like that, so they can't.
They can see us on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Cool.
I put the video on YouTube, and then audio is on iTunes and like 40 other sources.
Okay. I have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Do you teach anywhere else besides the White Pine?
I teach one-on-one clients at Sobe Fit Personal Training in Broad Ripple, and sometimes I will fill in for a buddy of mine at the fitness clinic. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't happen very often. And I used to teach like monthly workshops there, but currently the only places I teach are White Pine and Sobe Fit, and I do offer online training so people can get a hold of me if they want to. You can just do the show email; it'll be easiest to remember: fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com, and we can do personal training over Skype, or we usually use Zoom, but Skype, and can have your private sessions that way.
Cool. Well, did teaching ever become like hard for you? Like you were teaching and like you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then what motivated you to start doing it again?
Yeah, I kind of talked about that before. What I never wanted to quit teaching. I feel like my purpose on this planet, and it's been obvious since I was a kid, is to learn and teach. I'm supposed to collect information from the best sources that I can find, distill that, and then pass that on. So I'm supposed to take martial arts at these different schools, these different teachers. I'm supposed to be watching videos. It's like I just have to. I do it every day. I'm always watching videos, and I'm looking at different schools, and I'm training with different people, and I'm supposed to take in information from tons of different sources, distill that into what I think is the best, and pass that on. And the only thing that made me, I never wanted to quit doing that. Like I said, I started as a trainer in 1999. I think I had turned 20, but I think I was studying for it when I was 19 still.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing that made me want to quit was some of the different places that I worked where I was an employee. And the last place as an employee, which was in 2001, was just because the owner was such a control freak. And he wanted to control my own workouts. And it was just not really what I wanted. I'm a pretty, it's not like I think I know everything, but I want to do things my own way. So I know that I have a lot to learn, and I can learn from a lot of different people, but I want to do my own thing my own way. So now I will only train people, like whatever goals they have is fine. They don't have to be just like me. I'm not trying to get people to be just like me, but I want to have my way is my way, and I'm not going to teach somebody else's class. Like if somebody wants me to teach Zumba or tap dancing or something, no. I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin with either one of those, but I'm only going to teach what I think is right. And like, the only things that made me want to quit are who I was working for. So that's why I wouldn't see myself as an employee anymore. I'm just an independent trainer, and people can, accept that or not.
If I gave you $5 million, what would you do with it to benefit your business kind of thing?
I would build I would build a really cool gym that has all the cool equipment in it, basically. And I would have a really big place to train martial arts, and I would have tons of kettlebells, like in every size. I would have a bunch of different kinds of bars for strength training. Like we don't really worry about it too much in our class, like the different kind of bars.
Yeah.
But say like the bar that Richie brought, the barbell in there, he wouldn't use that for his weightlifting. It's not good for that. But for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. But like weightlifting is a sport that only has two lifts: the jerk and the clean and jerk and the snatch. And so you need a certain kind of bar for that. And there's a different kind of bar for people that specialize in deadlift or bench press. So I would have all those different things for everyone's different specialties. And I would just get coaches that I think are the best at those, and also see kind of the benefit in other ways. So like when I've asked coaches to teach at my workshops, I've never kind of like dictated what their class was going to be like.
Yeah.
Was that your last question, or did you have another one?
Yeah, that was my last question.
Okay, I have some for you.
Okay.
Why are you working on your interviews?
For my school. So basically, at school, we have these big projects that we do every cycle, and the cycles are like semesters. And every cycle, we go through a project phase, and we go through like the analyze phase, the empathy phase, and we're going every cycle that we go through the empathy phase. We interview people and ask them questions about our project, and I wanted to practice my interviewing skills. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you did really well. Those were really good questions. And what do you? I won't ramble on. I don't want to take your time. What do
I
you
don't really have
see?
anything to do for a long time, so it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter.
yeah. I have a bunch of stuff written out here that I was thinking of. So, do you're a freshman in high school, right?
Yeah.
And do high schoolers listen to podcasts?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because the kind of podcast that they listen to, like, like you know how kids usually watch YouTube?
Yeah.
YouTubers have their podcast, so they just listen to the YouTubers podcast or just watch the YouTubers podcast, stuff like that. Like there's people, it's mostly on like other YouTubers. So the podcast is one YouTuber talking to another YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
Some people listen to, I have friends that listen to like science podcasts and stuff like that. And I have friends that listen to like martial arts podcasts and stuff like that. So yeah, we do listen to podcasts sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think it's. I was going to ask you, like, what do you think is the future of? Maybe I'll put it in like a few different ways. So, like, what do you think is the future of communication? Like, how people get their information and communicate? And I was wondering about like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Like, what's the future of that? And
Continue your question.
that's okay. Go ahead. Just go ahead and go
Okay.
from there. That's.
I think the future of communicating is probably Snapchat and Instagram because I don't know. I don't know anybody who uses Facebook except for my mom and some other people that are older than me. And I think a lot of people really like Instagram because you can just scroll through. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Facebook is the same, but I don't know. People just use Instagram and Snapchat more. And I feel like in the future, there's going to be easier ways of communicating. So, like, you wouldn't even have to, like, message them. You could, like, send them a message and they could, like, hear it right away. Like, there wouldn't even have to be, like, you actually reading it or actually typing anything. Your brain could just send it. Magic.
With you mean like with some kind of device, like
Yeah.
attaching, like so your phone, like I saw like on that. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Shark Tank, but somebody brought in like this ear implant that's like your phone, but it's implanted into your, and they're like, that's a little far off. We can't even like think about that right now. But is that what you think? Kind of like us being some kind of, in a way, I think Elon Musk was, you know who he is?
Yeah, Elon Musk. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what that is.
He basically said we're, I think he said like we're basically cyborgs now. So yeah, our phone isn't literally attached to us,
But
it pretty much is. So whatever
yeah,
you want to know, you can find out immediately.
yeah,
I mean, you can Google anything pretty much and have just in seconds all the information at your fingertips. Do you think that like when I see Facebook compared to Instagram, it seems like Facebook there's more arguing and there's more it's more negative, but Instagram, and maybe part of it is just the people who I follow, but it's more positive. It's people aren't really arguing about stuff. I mean, most of the people that I know are in like fitness and philosophy and stuff. So it's all, you know, this person lifted this, or here's this new move, or here's a bunch of jujitsu stuff.
yeah.
Is that, you think, part of why the younger people are not using Facebook, or you think it's just outdated?
I think it's also the Facebook is kind of slow, but I also think that on Facebook people talk a lot about political things and like other things that I don't know, you kind of keep to yourself. And some people post things on Facebook that they should only talk to their families about. And then on Instagram, it's more like showing them your lifestyle or like what you're doing on the day-to-day basis. Like, oh, here, I went to Starbucks. Here's a picture of my Starbucks cup and stuff like that. Yeah, and then I think Instagram is more for people to show your life in a positive way, in positive light. And like Facebook is more like, I don't know. It's just different. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that the same way too, and like people like they're almost like they're showing their ideal selves on
Yeah.
Instagram, and I think that's okay. But and then like Facebook, like you said, like stuff they should keep to themselves or only talk to their family about. They're putting out messages about, it's like all kind of these, passive aggressive comments towards, they're talking about their boyfriend or some friend of theirs or something where they
Yeah.
say something like generally, but they're talking about someone in particular. Um, let's see. What do you think about my teaching style? And yeah, I have a few more after that, but like, what do you think of my teaching style?
It's really different from any other teacher that I've had in karate because I have teachers that are all like, you have to keep doing this over and over and over again until it looks strong enough to me, to the teacher. Like some people, they're like, okay, I need you to find that power inside of you and you're not going to stop doing this one thing until you can get it. And you move around with things and we jump from thing to thing because we're doing weightlifting and stuff, so we have to work on everything. But if we can't get it, that's okay. We can move on to something lower. It doesn't have to happen that day. And then I have other teachers that they like to try to cram as much stuff as they can into your brain in one day. But you focus on a couple things every class. Like sometimes we only work on like 3 things, or sometimes we do like patterns, so we'll do lifting and then we'll do something without a kettlebell. So, and it keeps us entertained and we're doing something the whole entire time. I have other teachers that just like to stand there and talk to you the whole time. So like there was this one time where I heard one of my senseis went to a seminar and it was supposed to be for 4 hours and they were supposed to learn like a lot of stuff. But the teacher sat there and talked the whole time. And I've had teachers that talk to me about, the history of karate, like almost every single class. And like, I'm just like, well, I kind of want to move on to my material. And you kind of get straight to the point. You're like, okay, we're going to do this. And that's that, right? And then we have to stay focused on it. So I think you have a really good teaching style. And you keep us entertained. Sometimes it gets a little hard. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating because we're weightlifting. And some of it's kind of hard sometimes, but that's just going to happen. But then after you get over that, then you can just keep going and do whatever you want. And sometimes, like with AJ, I get a little annoyed with him, the way he acts towards the weightlifting and stuff. But, we all have to focus on ourselves and make sure that we don't hurt ourselves or the people around us. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's good to hear. What about it is frustrating?
Not being able to do what you think you could be able to do. Like I remember when we started, we would do like straight presses with the 25, and then like I could be able to do them so easily, and then the next day I would try to do it and I wouldn't even be able to get it past like the little. So stuff like that is kind of like a mind block. Like why could I do this like a week ago, but now I can't do it anymore? Another thing that's frustrating is like when we try to, I don't know, I think it's mostly when we have mind blocks and we can't do stuff and some of it's hard to get over. Like when I do laches, for example, like sometimes it's hard to do and you're like, I know you can do this because I've done it before, right? Like I can physically do a lache, but right now I can't because my mind will not let me let go of the bars at the same time. Like stuff like that. It's mostly mental blocks that make it the hardest in weightlifting, and yeah.
Yeah, it is tough because like when people are getting ready for competitions, they try to do the most that they've ever done at the competition. They
Yeah.
try to have their personal record, and then after the competition, they go back down and they don't expect to lift more and more every day. So with like programming for classes, uh, it's yeah, how do I continually get better without like worrying about like a competition where
Yeah.
sometimes people may risk an injury, like where we never really need to risk getting an injury. There's
Yeah.
the idea is to become like more and more resilient and stronger. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it's just like that with, sometimes the weight goes up easier and sometimes not. And what the reason why can sometimes be a mystery. Um,
Yeah.
if you could teach a class, what would it be?
I would teach like anything
Anything.
or weightlifting and martial arts.
And anything.
Anything. If I could teach a class, I think I would teach a class probably on something to do with martial arts and weightlifting. Something that has to do with that. Like probably about uh like like laches and pull-ups, stuff like that. That's what I would teach. That sounds like fun to teach lots of people. But I feel like it would be difficult because there's some people that can't do it, and like they'll try to do it, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore." Like, and then they'll get bored. I think another cool class that I would like to teach is like a karate class, like a seminar with like a lot of people. Seminars are really fun to do, and I think that seminars are really cool to go to. Never been to like a weightlifting seminar, but well, I went to that one that you had that one day. That was pretty cool. Like, cause you talk to them, you listen about the history, you learn about like where these things came from, and then you do it, and you're like, this is easy, stuff like that. I think it's fun to
The one
teach.
with,
I don't think I would like teaching anything about school, cause yeah,
you said you would not want to teach like the school stuff? Or you
no,
would? Yeah. The seminar that you're talking about, was that the one that we had with a bunch of instructors?
yeah,
Yeah.
and you had all the adults. There was like I don't know, a lot of adults there. And they were all standing in the big circle inside that seminar.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really cool. And it's likely that you will probably be the first, by far the youngest that I ever have asked to teach at one. So I've been thinking about it for a while because your technique and your attitude and your strength, because you have to be able to like prove it. Also, like
Yeah,
part of like the strong first stuff is you have to lift a certain amount. If you don't, you fail. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Well, it doesn't only matter how smart you are. You have to actually be able to do stuff to get a strong first certification.
yeah,
And for instance, I was doing workshops, and when they got to be so many people that I didn't feel like I could do a good enough job by myself, I asked my uh, buddy Sam to help me teach. And he had been training people for, at that time, like 17 years or something like that.
yeah,
But I'm super picky of who I pick. So when I pick someone, I don't uh, ask them to do anything specific. At that time, he was helping me do these specific things. So it
yeah,
wasn't like he couldn't do whatever he wanted, but I trusted him because he's been training people so long. He even had lessons from me in kettlebell stuff. But when I asked those other instructors that you've met, I asked them because they're really good. but I didn't say, okay, I want you to teach handstands. I want you to teach this, and here's how I want you to do it. It was just like, hey, will you teach this workshop? They say yes. I'd say, great. What are you going to teach? They could do whatever they wanted, and that's how it comes out. I don't want to be a dictator, but if there's like some kettlebell stuff, then, and if I'm in charge, then yeah, I'm in charge. This is how I want things to be done.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, whether it's like the I don't have another workshop or seminar or anything planned now, but thought like have you teaching more, just like at the regular class, like, okay, you get the first 15 minutes, or maybe you'll teach this technique or something like that,
Yeah.
and get more and more used to that. Are you teaching at the karate class? Did you say?
I teach during the first class on Tuesdays, and then when I go to the Silent Person's Dojo, I teach on Thursdays and Fridays, and I get to bow the class in and out, and I work on their material and teach them. And I also think it's good for people to teach other people, because then you get a feel for working with people and seeing them do new things, and like making this little tweak, and you just know. And then when you start working on it yourself, or you're like, oh, I know how to teach this better now because I'm doing it myself, and I've done this before, and I knew how it was when I was younger and learning at first. And it helps with a lot with muscle memory. And yeah, teaching is really fun, especially when the kids are engaged and they're having fun too.
And are you getting paid for it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. What do you think about kettlebells for the karate? What do you think about? I know we've done a lot more with the kettlebells than the barbells, but you've done some barbell stuff, and like, how do you think that affects like the training that you do in class? How do you think that affects your karate?
Well, when we do weightlifting, like carries and stuff, if like the more carries that we do, it like makes us feel heavier, and then when we put down the weights, it makes us lighter, and it helps us with balance with heavier weights. So with throws, we know that how to keep ourselves balanced if we pick up a heavy person. When we do the kettlebell where we're not allowed to bend our wrists and we have to hold it straight up and down, I think that helps with our wrist strength. Also help if we like all the other motions that we do, like we turn it around and stuff. That also helps with like keeping our wrists straight and building the muscle right there, so that if you punch somebody, it would hurt you. I think that doing squats helps a lot with stances and all that stuff, because we have our horse stance, and obviously sometimes we have to hold it for a really long time. And then in kata, when we do kata, we have to hit all those stances right, and doing kettlebells helps us with power, and we know how to control our arms more and control our legs, and like what kinds of things we want to do. So like if we were doing a kata and we wanted to do like a kick, but we can imagine ourselves, but we're also stronger in our legs, so we can keep more balance and hold it out there and make it look more pretty for like tournaments and stuff. So weightlifting helps a lot in a lot of different things, in everything pretty much.
What about like the kettlebells compared to a barbell? Do you think that um, like they each have their place, or you think barbells might be better or kettlebells are better? Or
I think that barbells just help more with, depending on what you're doing with the barbells. Like deadlifts helps your legs get stronger, so that would help with kicks. But with kettlebells, you can pick up any weight and do whatever you want with it. With the barbell, there's only certain things that you can do. But I think it's good that we work on with kettlebells more, because we have a bigger, broader range of options. I only have 10 more minutes, so.
okay, let's see. Um, I that was I think that's about all I had also. Yeah, I think that was really cool. I think you did really well with all your questions and thinking it out. And when you're um, I think like interviewing someone, I guess it's going to depend on who it is and what the situation is.
Yeah.
But sometimes
Sometimes.
you can think of like have your questions out, but also you can think uh, you don't have to just have the next question like ready, or
Yeah.
you can have the next question ready, but you can also like ask them more about their answer. Like, 'cause
Like,
sometimes like I don't have any questions. Um, like I didn't know how this was going to go, so I wanted to be like prepared in a way that I wasn't sure like how long your answers would be and stuff. So I wrote out some stuff. Like sometimes people are just like, yeah, we'll just like let it fly. They don't need their questions beforehand, and I more like think of subjects, and then in their answers will um, give me my next question. So sometimes I learn something that I didn't. They give me an answer I wasn't expecting, so I can ask them like more about that. And it just kind of depends. But I think you did really well. Do you think you might want to start your own like podcast where
okay.
you're interviewing people, or you're giving your views like on YouTube or whatever?
I feel like doing a podcast would be really fun. I wouldn't really know where to start, but I think that I could do anything. I could interview anybody. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think that starting a podcast would be fun.
Yeah, well, I'd be glad to help you get it going and give you ideas, because there's um, some definite things that can speed the process along and put it where you um, want it to be, and save the time and frustration of expending hours googling something, trying to figure out something obscure, and it's really you just press this button or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're like knowing what you're with like tech, and it's like you probably be able to like catch on to a lot of the technical stuff faster than me, just because it's a generational thing. And but anyways, yeah, if you want to do one, just I'd be glad to help you however.
Yeah. Sounds
So
like fun.
how do you how would you like to end the show? Any final thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
I think everybody who has kids should come to the White Pine and do weightlifting with us. And they should come to karate at the Rivy so that I can teach them. We need more students.
Yeah, that's a good way to end it.
They should also come to Phoenix Rising Karate to do karate there too.
Yeah, and this is all in Indianapolis, so we have people listening from all over the world. But
Yeah.
they will, but local people, it's popular locally also. So people around here will definitely get the message. And well, thanks for coming on. This was really cool. This is one of my favorite ones. It's cool to uh, dig in and see what you think about stuff, and hear what the questions that you have that you haven't asked me in
Yeah.
the year and a half or whatever that we've known each other. So, all right, well, we'll leave it at that, and I will see you Monday.
Yep.
All right, thanks. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll talk to you for just a second when we're done.
Okay.